Shalom, family. This is another teaching from Teo Ministries. The title of this teaching is "The Plagues Are Here. Let My People Go." First the plagues, then the Exodus. So the question today is it really happening? Throughout most of our lives, we heard about the end times. We've heard about the last days judgments. Could it be that the judgments are here? Are we seeing the plagues of Egypt? Are we seeing the judgments of the book of Revelation? It appears that this is just what we are seeing. Can all of what I am about to show you be coincidence? So is all of this by happen chance? Is it a fraud? Is it our imaginations? Is all of what's happening a figment of our imagination? The types and shadows. If you went through our previous end time prophecy teachings, I talked about dual fulfillments. I talked about types and shadows. So in ancient Egypt, our ancestors were slaves. Today in America, the Negroes are still slaves, although many do not realize they are, but are awakening to this fact. In ancient Egypt, our ancestors started to be beaten. Exodus chapter 5 verse 14. And Pharaoh's slave drivers beat the Israelite overseers they had appointed, demanding, "Why haven't you met your quota of bricks yesterday or today as before?" Today the awakened Israelite, the Negro, are being beaten and killed by police in modern Egypt, aka America. So we have what we call type and shadow, right? We have a dual fulfillment happening here, right? Just as in ancient Egypt we had the slave being beaten. Today what we call police, who are really the descendants, let's say, there's probably a better word for that, but of these slave patrols. So the slave patrols, the overseer slave patrols, whatever you want to call them, they were the police, right? That's where police came from. They had badges and everything, and they could go round up these slaves who ran away. So today we have an overseer, right? Just like in Exodus 5, they're beating and killing our people, and they hold themselves not guilty. So we have a shadow of the past happening today. So today there's a global phenomenon of the Negro awakening to being the true Hebrew Israelite as prophesied in the Bible. This awakening occurred en masse after the 4 blood moons. The Negro, aka true Israelites, are now calling for their Elohim, for their God, to return and deliver them from the lands of their captivity, just like their ancestors did. The warning to let Father Yah's people go has been given by us at Teo Ministries and others. See the fall of the Gentile powers. Just as Pharaoh's heart was hardened, so it appears the Europeans' hearts have been hardened to our plight. They are the new Egyptians. The end of 400 years, Genesis chapter 15 verse 13. And he said unto Abram, "Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them there 400 years." So even Egypt or America recognize that these are the times. This is H.R. 1242, 400 Years of African American History Commissions Act. This was created by the Trump administration to recognize that the Negro, the Black American, what they call African American, has been in this land for 400 years. Is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that we're at the end of the 400-year captivity and all these things are occurring? 2 Ezra 15:11. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. So Father Yah says he's going to pour plagues on Egypt as before. So we know this is a different Egypt, because he said as before, which means there was one in the past. Now the plagues have arrived on the world. God is letting Europeans know and the world know, let my people go. Stop killing my people. Stop shooting my people in the back. Stop raping my people. Father God says the end of their 400 years is at hand, and I will get involved. Plagues have arrived on the world. So these are just a few of the plagues, right? I mean, there's more plagues that happen in Egypt, and we're seeing those too, right? But, you know, I wasn't going to go through each and every one, okay? So waters into blood, frogs, lice, diseased livestock, hail, darkness for 3 days, and death of the firstborn. So this is Exodus 7:14-21. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuseth to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goeth out unto the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's brink, and against he come, and the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thy hand. And thou shalt say unto him, The Lord God of the Hebrews has sent me unto thee, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness, and behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, In this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink the water of the river. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and vessels of stone. And Moses and Aaron did so, as the Lord commanded, and he lifted up the rod, and smote the waters that were in the river, in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Modern fulfillment. A toxic tide is killing Florida wildlife. Florida has an algae problem, and it's big. This year, an overgrowth in the waters of the state's southwestern coast is killing wildlife and making some beaches noxious. The toxic algae bloom known as the red tide is not unusual. They appear off the state's coast almost every year. But this one, still going strong after roughly 9 months, is the longest since '06, when blooms that originated in '04 finally abated after 17 months. The blooms can poison marine animals like sea turtles and manatees, while waves and ocean spray can carry toxins into the air and cause respiratory problems in people. They can also hit the local tourism industry hard. We're all being really devastated, said Rachel Wells, 24, who manages an ecotourism business in Inglewood, Florida, that runs catamaran tours in the Gulf of Mexico. Business is just being hurt because we cannot consciously suggest for our guests to come out. So here we see red tide, which, I would presume is synonymous with the sea turning to blood. Now, is it an exact fulfillment of what happened in ancient times in the book of Exodus? It's obviously not a identical experience or situation, because even the water that was in their containers, right, in their vessels, turned to blood. But we are seeing a lot of these things. The fish die, right? The river stinking, the water stinking. And Florida isn't the only place that is having these issues. These issues have been worldwide for some time now. And what I believe these things are the warning signs, right? It is sort of like the steps leading up to the great fulfillment of it, right? Because Father God said in 2 Ezra 15, I will not suffer my people to dwell anymore in Egypt. Why? Because they're being slaughtered. And we got all these things happening today. Frogs, plague of frogs. Exodus 8:3. And the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading throws. Invasive tree frogs have snuck into Louisiana, and they are not good neighbors. Cuban tree frogs can find their way into your plumbing. Most folks don't appreciate opening their toilet lid and there being a large Cuban tree frog in their commode, says Steve Johnson. So we have an invasion of frogs in Louisiana. More frogs. In South Florida, once again Florida, cane toads are so numerous that they seem to be dropping from the sky. They're overtaking parking lots, and backyards can weigh almost 6 pounds, and packing up poison to kill pets. Why the surge? America, seen from a satellite at night, blooms with lice up one coast, down the other, and all across the middle. If you focus on the lice of Southwest Palm Beach, and then zoom in on a particular mall or commercial strip of residential area, and then on a particular street light, and then on the illuminated circle that the street light throws on the ground, you may see some frog-like shapes. Go in as close as you can down to the round black gold-flecked eye of one of those shapes, in which the light above it is pinpoint blue reflection. You are eye to eye with a cane toad, one of the most successful invasive species on the planet. So we see many places, and these are not the only places having issues with frogs. And but we see these signs happening, right? When I was young, I did not see all these things, right? All of these things weren't happening. The plague of lice. And so you can go and read Exodus 8:16 through 19. You will see the story of the lice. I also put Psalms 105:31 because it also shows you that there were flies as well as lice. Okay, he spake, and there came different sorts of flies and lice in all their coasts, right? Modern fulfillment. When 26,000 stink bugs invade your home. Zimmerman was still downstairs when he heard her scream. He sprinted up to join her, and the two of them stood in the doorway aghast. Their bedroom walls were crawling with insects, not dozens of them, but hundreds upon hundreds. Stone knew what they were because she'd seen a few around the house earlier that year and eventually posted a picture of one on Facebook and asked what it was. That's a stink bug, a chorus of people had told her specifically. A brown, marmorated stink bug. Huh? Stone had thought at the time. Never heard of them. Now they were covering every visible surface of her bedroom. It was like a horror movie, Stone recalled. Another plague, Exodus 9:1 through 7. Diseased livestock. Here's a list of massive animal die-offs. 660,000 birds in Russia. Mass fish kill-off in Florida, once again. Right? 24,000 birds killed due to avian flu. Thousands of dead seabirds. Hundreds of dead fish. Dozens of dead hammerhead sharks. Hundreds of dead fish, right? And we could also go down to 100 tons of dead fish found washed in Russia. 6,000 livestock dead due to cold in Huancavelica, Peru. I know I didn't pronounce that right, but you can see it. 50 geese found dead. So we've been having, over the past few years, fish dying, birds dying, animals dying. And yet we're supposed to sit here and think these things are normal. But now they're coinciding with the awakening of Israel, right? The Negro who most people call African Americans or blacks or niggers, right? And now all of a sudden they're saying, hey, we're the true Hebrew Israelites of the Bible. As prophesied, we would awaken. And now all of these things are increasing in intensity. Hell, right? So hell, this is Exodus 9:19. Send therefore now, and gather thy cattle, and all that thou hast in the field. For upon every man and beast which shall be found in the field, it shall not be brought home. The hail shall come down upon them, and they shall die. A severe thunderstorm passed through Greeley around 7:30 p.m. Sunday, bringing hail, some of which were golf ball size. There were reports of damage, including broken windshields and destroyed gardens. There are still severe storms moving across the eastern plains with the potential for more hail. The threat of storms diminishes Monday, but commuters may wake up to a foggy start to the work week. So we see that this has been happening over and over every year, right? Hail, golf ball size hail. This has been happening and continues to happen. And even though when I was young, we've had some hail. I mean, it's nothing like you see today. It seems to be exponentially increasing. And I will pretend that it has to do with the birth pains, because birth pains increase with intensity. Now this is very interesting here. Darkness for 3 days, Exodus 10, verses 21 to 29. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Sun vanishes for 3 hours over rural Siberia. Russian authorities remain mum. So here, this is a story of the whole town going black, dark, right? During the time when really in this area of the world it's light for 24 hours, right? And so instead of 3 days, here it was for 3 hours. And once again, my thought is that these are leading up to the big ones, right? And so the question we have to ask ourselves, are these similarities just coincidences? And, so let's read this article. Sun disappears over Siberia. July is one of the best times to catch the sun in the Republic of Yakutia, a Russian region blanketed in snow for more than half the year. However, residents were astounded to find that a thick blanket of dark haze crept over the sun on the afternoon of July 20th, leaving the districts of Ivano, Bytotsky, and Zhikansky in pitch black darkness, according to a report by regional news website Yakutia 24. The neighboring district, Verkhoyansky, was also said to have been covered in darkness, creating an area larger than Italy, where the sun appeared to have been eclipsed by some unidentified object. Russian authorities have up to now provided zero explanation as to what could have caused the darkness over the 3 districts in the country's northeastern region. Details of the event remain contradictory, with local residents and officials providing varying accounts of what happened. Okay, so here we see that darkness covered the land for over 3 hours, right? It was a dark haze that crept over them, right? So here's the rest of this article, which I found very, very interesting. Darkness had a yellowish tinge. Images provided by locals to Siberian Times reveals the dark silhouette of trees and buildings cast against a dark reddish sky. The air appeared to be filled with a thick, dusty haze, but local officials later said that there was no dust. One local says it appeared to be a thunderstorm looming from the horizon. It got darker and darker, but the darkness seems to have a rich yellow undertone. Inside their homes, people had to use electricity to be able to see. Those who were brave enough to venture outside carried torches. So it was so dark during the day, during that time, that they needed torches to see. During this time, it's 24/7, supposed to be 24/7 light or daylight. When the sun vanished, people started calling us, and the administration says, Konstantin Strasorstin, head of the whatever. Many got scared, especially elderly people. People who live here for many years say they had never witnessed anything like this. The darkness was pitch black. It didn't come at once, but grew gradually. The sun was gone from 11:30 until 1400 on Friday, July 20th. When the sun reappeared, some locals said they found dust everywhere, including in their barrels of water that had turned into puddles of mud. However, Stashleton denies this report and says no dust was found. There were also rumors of a bright flash of light that was registered by the U.S. satellites, followed by the uptick of radioactive levels and a flurry of unusual military activity in the area. So what's interesting here, it almost sounds like the biblical account because you have this tinge, right? Some people say it was dust. And if it was dust, that means it felt like dust, right? If they thought that there was a yellowish tinge in the dust, but yet this one guy says, I guess he's a professional, says no, he didn't find any dust. So what could it have been? Apparently for them to think it was dust, they must have felt something that felt like dust. And remember, in the Bible, they were able to feel that darkness, right? And so here it seemed like maybe they were feeling the darkness. It felt like dust, because yet they didn't find any dust, right? And also we find that that they had to go outside with torches. It was so black. It was so dark, right? So it's really interesting how this parallels what we see in Exodus. There's a parallel here, there's those types and shadows, those dual fulfillments almost, it's like, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, right? And so we see that there's really nothing new under the sun. Now, the other thing about this article that I found interesting is right here where they say, when the sun reappeared, some locals said they found dust everywhere, including in their barrels of water that had turned into puddles of mud. Remember in the scriptures it said that in their containers, right, in their vessels and all of that, it too was filled with blood or bloody water. I mean, could this be what we're seeing here? Because here they say it was filled with dust and puddles of mud. What is that? But yet this other guy says, no dust was found. It's really interesting. I mean, if this not biblical judgment, I don't know. I mean, it looks like it to me. Exodus 11:1 through Exodus 11:1 through Exodus 12:36. Now, I'm not going to read all of those. That's the whole reference dealing with the death of the firstborn. And you can go read that. I'm going to read these few verses. And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. So a potential fulfillment of this is happening in our times. The year Trump was elected, more white Americans died than were born. Researchers with the Applied Population Lab of the University of Wisconsin at Madison were looking at birth and mortality rates when they noticed that a tipping point had been reached. More white Americans died in 2016 than were born. So now we see something similar again as what happened in ancient Egypt when our ancestors were slaves and right before the first Exodus. Interesting. Now we also have judgments that happen in Revelation, blood moon. Revelation 6:12. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. So we just recently had a eclipse, what we call it, and the moon turned blood red. The total phase of the blood moon eclipse of July 27 will last 1 hour and 43 minutes, during which Earth's natural satellite will turn a spectacular red or ruddy brown color. From start to finish, the entire celestial event will last nearly 4 hours. The eclipse won't be visible to viewers in North America except via a webcast, but observers in much of Africa, the Middle East, Southern Asia, and the Indian Ocean region will get an eyeful given cooperative weather, according to lunar scientist Noah Petro. So we see here a blood moon. Now, we all know about the previous blood moons, right? Those 4 blood moons that happened a few years back leading up to these events. Now, what we're seeing is more and more what we would consider prophetic events happening, and another blood moon. Earthquakes. A photo shared by Anwat Kogak, a 28-year-old hiker from Thailand who was on top of Mount Renajani when the earthquake hit. And please forgive me for my lack of being able to pronounce these names. According to Indonesia's National Disaster Management Agency, 149 climbers are still believed to be stranded on the volcano itself, while 500 people are trapped in Sambulan village on the volcano slopes, and an additional 40 tourists are in nearby Batu Seeper. At least one climber had died after being struck by falling rocks, Sutopo said. Videos given to CNN by the trekking group, who were in Renaji when the earthquake struck, show enormous clouds of dust covering the slopes of the mountain triggered by the landslides. So here we have people stuck on the mountain because of an earthquake. Now, we've had various earthquakes that's been happening around the world. We also hear that a potential earthquake is going to happen in Yellowstone and cause the supervolcano to finally explode, which is possible. We see the volcano in Hawaii, and many of you have seen the videos of that with the magma coming up and out and spewing forth. We have global catastrophes all over the world. I mean, catastrophes all over. It's global. And is it a coincidence? So, eclipse of the sun. No total solar eclipse will take place in 2018. The next total solar eclipse will occur July 2nd, 2019, and will be visible in the South Pacific, Chile, and Argentina. So in the past, we've had eclipse and total eclipse, all right? Also leading up to these times. Now we also have an eclipse that's coming July 2nd, 2019. It just so happens to be that 2019 is the end of our 400-year captivity within America, aka Babylon, right? It just so happens that the first slaves to arrive to America, right, what we call the modern day of America, it was 1619, right, with the European English rule, right? Some people will talk about the Spanish, but the whole Florida thing, when they went to Florida and the Spaniards were in control, that was Spanish territory. They're not the ones who ended up controlling the U.S., right? So also some people were trying to escape to Florida because the Spanish were promising to free some of the slaves. So our 400 years captivity under this rule, which is the English rule, which is the American rule, is 400 years, right? And it comes to an end August of 2019. Sun scorched men. This is Revelation 16:8. Then the fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and power was given to him to scorch men with fire. And men were scorched with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of God who has power over these plagues, and they did not repent and give him glory. Now this is from another article. Dozens dead as wildfires near Athens, Greece. Greece fires force people to flee into the ocean. At least 49 people have died in the worst wildfires to have hit Greece in over a decade, officials said, with many people trapped by the flames and forced to flee into the sea. Residents told of horrifying scenes as flames engulfed a seaside village. Some escaped only by running into the sea, chased by the advancing fire. Also, to let you know, some people died. They were in their cars on a bridge, and the fires caught up to them and killed them in their cars, and their cars were consumed, right? So we see not only earthquakes and blood moons, we see the sun scorching and burning the towns and causing fires. There's also articles, which I could not go through all of them and put them all here, of Japan. Japan had the biggest heat wave they've ever had. Several people died, and I think it was over 50 people, right, who died just from the heat and being scorched by the sun, right, in Japan. Japan also has a major flood going on, just like other countries around the world. There's major global catastrophes all happening at this time. So the question is, are all of these things coincidence? We have to ask ourselves, are they a coincidence? I've never seen anything like this most of my life. We have to add this to also the wars and rumors of wars, right? That's occurring with Russia and the U.S., right? The possible invasion of America by Russia. I have articles on that where America's concerned that Russia's planning a pre-strike, and that Russia says that they know that America's about to invade them, right, and disrupt them and try to split them off into 4 nations. So we have all these things happening, along with the earthquakes and the blood moons and the sky turning black and pestilences and diseases and increase in decadence, and I could go on, and it doesn't end. So ask yourself, is all of this a coincidence? If it looks like the description of the biblical end days, maybe it is. Now, I'm not seeing an identical, like for instance, where it says that men will curse God because of the heat and they're being scorched. I don't see that yet, right? But who knows? And then the other question we have to ask ourselves, why did Russia become dark? Why didn't Egypt itself, which I believe to be America, which is also Babylon, not get scorched or be under, the plague of darkness? My theory is this, and just a theory, is that Russia is the land of Gog, of Magog, and that Russia is going to be the new rising power of the kingdom of the beast. And so I believe that's why Russia is under that judgment, which is why Russia had the darkness, because I think Russia is part of this plan, and I do believe Russia will destroy Babylon, aka America. But I believe that it's all part of a bigger plan, right? And so what we're seeing here is that God is pouring it on the beast kingdom, which is Russia. Now, like I said, that's just my theory. We'll see as things progress. My question to you is, can all of this just be coincidence? So, modern Pharaoh. Today's Pharaoh would be the modern nations that have enslaved Father Yah's people around the world, especially the European nations. These signs is a command from the Most High to let his people go. These signs are to let you know that you should stop killing us. I'm talking to the Europeans. These are signs. These signs are to let you know that our 400 years are over, that they are at an end. So once again, as I mentioned in the last show, repent, Gentiles, for this is the last warning. Okay? So you are the pharaohs today. The question is, will you allow your heart to be hardened? We've told you who we are. We've told you we've been blinded. We've told you that we can see who we are now. According to the scriptures, right? We know who we are. We've showed you the historical evidence of who we are, right? But yet you still want to persecute us. You still want to kill us. You still want to have injustice towards us because you love supremacy, right? You love the supremacy you get from this system. But this system is over. Take note of this also as a prophetic fulfillment, and this is sort of like the underlying things that you would think you should see, right? So not that it's written out clearly in the scriptures, but it's things that should occur if what we're saying is correct, right? So we know, according to the scriptures, that we will be gathered from around the world, from all the places we went into captivity, and we will be brought back to the land. right? And the nations are going to give us gold and silver and cattle and all these things when we go back. Now, we do know if that's the case, then there will not be a governmental system initially in place, right? So that's going to have to be put into place. Also, we will have to have allies who are going to help us to rebuild and help protect us, right? Isn't it interesting that now at this very moment in time where we're seeing these plagues, we're seeing these judgments, we're seeing the awakening of Israel globally, we're seeing the end of the 400 years captivity, that the African Union is coming to pass, right? Now, they're unifying economically, but they also have plans to unify at some level, politically, right? So the question is this, is all of this a coincidence? Because now what you have are Israelites, right, in West Africa, Ghana, Togo, Benin, all these other nations, Nigeria, Somalia, all these places. Now they're uniting. Rwanda, right? They're uniting. And not only that, China is helping build up their system. Many are saying that they're the next China. They're the next global economic bloc. And everyone is investing heavily. So China's investing, Russia's investing, everybody's investing. Now, what that means is there's going to be less of an influence of the Europeans. France is going to slowly get pushed out. England is slowly going to get pushed out, even though they're still in Kenya, right? So what's going to happen is now comes the fulfillment of the prophecy, right? That the last shall be first and the first shall be last. I mean, is it just coincidence? Take it for what you want. So the true Israel. If what we see is the last days judgments prophesied in the Bible, what type of person should you be? One standing on the corner and cussing, or one trying to be holy and righteous? All of these things are occurring at the end of our 400 years of captivity in this land. All of these judgments look a lot like the judgments on Egypt before our ancestors left their captivity in ancient Egypt. I say it is too much to be a coincidence. Our deliverance draws nigh, our captivity is at an end. The second Exodus is near. Now, come out from among them and be ye separate. Ye must be a holy people, a royal priesthood, right? We got to be set apart. When people see us, they should see the Spirit of Father Yah on us. They should see the Spirit of the Lord Yeshua, Jesus, on us, right? We must set apart. And we shouldn't be cussing and cursing and sending people to hell, because that's not our place. Our place is to serve the Most High and do what He tells us to do. So, once again, thank you for listening. I think this is an important time. I think that what's happening today is prophetic. I don't see how it can't be. These things are, at minimum, it's weird. At minimum, these things that are happening are weird, right? Which means it's not normal, right? What we're seeing is not normal. It's not what I knew growing up. It's not what I saw when I was young. Now these things are happening almost on a daily basis, and it's getting weirder, I mean, darkness covering Russia for over 3 hours and people feeling some type of dust. It's weird. So something's happening. And I'm convinced that it's because it's the end of our captivity. It is time to go. What else could it be? I mean, I'm seeing every single thing. And I would tell my brother, I said, I'm seeing everything fulfilled. I'm seeing everything that I've taught in those end time prophecies coming to pass. Russia setting up to attack America. America getting ready to attack Russia. We have issues in the Middle East. People getting tired of the fake Jews and their stuff. I mean, it's like a lot of people understanding what's happening. A lot of, Europeans waking up to who we are, teaching about it. It can't be coincidence. So if you like our teaching, if you like what we do, we ask for your support on Patreon. Some of these things, it costs us some money, so we got to take care of it. And then, of course, the things that we want to do. And so if you want to see us, help reach Africa and form a relationship with our brethren, if you want to see us work on, historical documentation and books that we could give to you all, help us out. Some people can't, and if you can't, that's fine. But, let's look at it this way. If what we're seeing is accurate, let's say it's end time prophetic prophecies being fulfilled, then most of us, gonna have to deal with a lot of trouble initially, right? Because we already see the increase in them trying to kill us, right? And that's going to increase a bit, What I see is a potential small racial conflicts happening, right? But Father Yah is going to protect us, and the more they target us and the more they persecute us, the more the judgment, right? And so all of these things are happening. So if all these things are happening, we're about to leave. Shall a nation be born in a day? That's about to be answered. And I would say, if you want to be a part of that, help us reach people, help us reach our brethren. Talk to your family. Talk to people who you don't know. Let them know who we are. Let them know what's going on. And if you have Europeans who want to be allies with us, be allies with them, right? Because many of them going back with us to the land. Believers, right? Now, camps will tell you that's not going to happen, but the scriptures teach that, right? So it is what it is. Love you. Peace.